Hey, Cross Community Young Adults. Today, by the time you're receiving this devotion, is Monday, June 16th, and I wanted to bring today's devotional to you. We're in the middle of looking at the Alpha program and considering some of the content, working our way through some of the content of the Alpha program. The Alpha program helps present the message of Jesus and Christianity and walks through that in a kind of formalized way through a series of talks that usually take place once a week and take place over an extended amount of time, about 11 weeks plus a weekend away. And so we're experimenting with not only exposing ourselves to some of the content of Alpha, but then also considering what it might be like for us to work through that content during the fall. Would it be good to take the scripts of the talk and send those out in written form throughout the week? Or, as we're doing today, taking a portion of one of those talks, and I'll give it in this video form, and perhaps we would, instead of watching a 35-minute presentation of that, I would divide that into several portions, and then I could present it like I'm doing right now. And so I want to get your feedback on that. We're going to be meeting at our house Sunday, and we'll talk about it then. But just for fun today, and see what you think of me presenting this portion of the talk. Is there more to life than this? And so that's today's devotion. So here's the direction of the talk and this portion of it. This portion of the talk, the next three portions, will look at the question, is Christianity boring or untrue or irrelevant? And I would like to take the topic of, is it irrelevant? And we want to look at that. If you've been reading along the last couple devotions, we've been looking at the script of this talk that talks about the question, is there more to life than this? And that's kind of where we've left it off. And now we want to kind of address, is it irrelevant? And we'll talk about that. So talking point in this case is this: I am the way. Jesus says that. Nicky Gumbel talks about some friends of theirs who, when their children were younger, had a Swedish au pair girl, this being someone who comes from a different country, to be a nanny and to oversee the children and their way of living in exchange for being in that new country and learning about that country and receiving a stipend as well. So this girl hadn't quite mastered all the English idioms. One time the children were kind of roughhousing upstairs in the bedroom, and she ran upstairs. And what she meant to say is this: what on earth are you doing? But what she actually said is, what are you doing on earth? Now, that's a great question to ask. What are you doing on earth? In other words, where have I come from? Where am I heading? Who am I? What's the point of my life? Is there any real meaning and purpose to life? These are what you might call like the first order questions of life. And a lot of people spend a lot of their life trying to find some kind of ultimate meaning or purpose in life. I think of the great Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy, who wrote War and Peace and Anna Katerina, and also wrote another book called A Confession, in which he told his life story. He described how as a child he rejected Christianity, and he started to search for meaning and purpose in this life. And at first he thought, life is just about having a good time. Just make the most of life, have fun. And he entered into the social whirl of Moscow and St. Petersburg. He drank heavily, he was promiscuous. He basically led a wild life, and he found that left him feeling a bit empty. And he thought, well, then maybe money is the answer. He'd inherited a lot of money, and he started to make a lot of money out of the books that he was selling as well. And he found that money's a bit like seawater. The more you drink of it, the more thirsty you are. And that didn't satisfy. And he thought, well, maybe like fame, importance, success, if I can be really successful. And he wrote what the Encyclopedia Britannica describes as one of the 2 or 3 greatest novels in the whole world of literature, and it still didn't satisfy him. I was interested in something the actor Jim Carrey said. He said this: I think everyone should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see it's just not the answer. And Tolstoy saw that that wasn't the answer. And he thought, well, maybe it's all about relationships, marriage, family life. He married in 1862, had a very happy family and 13 children, which he said distracted him from his search for overall meaning of life. He was surrounded by what looked like everyone looking at Tolstoy would say, wow, you've got everything. You've got complete happiness. And he said, yet one question drove him to the verge of suicide. And the question was this: what meaning has my life that the inevitability of death does not destroy? He started to think about this, and he thought, well, the philosophers must have an answer to this. The scientists must have an answer. So he started to search in every field of science and philosophy to answer the question, why do I live? And the only answer he came up with is this: in the infinity of space and the infinity of time, infinitely small particles mutate with infinite complexity. And he did not find that satisfying. Then he looked around at his friends, his contemporaries, and they weren't really even facing up to the question. And eventually, he found in the very poor people of Russia that they had found the answer in their faith in Jesus Christ. 100 years later, nothing's changed. Freddie Mercury, the lead singer in the rock group Queen, had amassed a huge fortune, attracting thousands of fans, but he later admitted in an interview shortly before his death that he was desperately lonely. He said, you can have everything in the world and still be the loneliest man. Success had brought me idolization and millions of pounds, the British currency, but it's prevented me from having the one thing we all need: a loving, ongoing relationship. And ultimately, there is only one relationship that is totally loving and goes on forever. And that is a relationship with God. And Jesus Christ said, I am the way to that relationship. So what difference does it make? C.S. Lewis said, I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I can see it, but by it I see everything else. And to me, that's like Jesus is the lens through which we see God. He's the way to God, and also he's the lens by which we see the world in a totally different dimension and clarity. Jesus said, I am the way. Well, that's the portion of this talk that can help us to understand that with Jesus, it's not irrelevant. He is the way. Christianity is not irrelevant. Jesus is the way. I'd like for you to think about that today and ask God to work in your life as it relates to this information, and know that we're praying for you. We'll plan on meeting in our house on Sunday. We'll talk more about the Alpha program. And I want your thoughts regarding this.